I paid their mortgage every month, on time, no questions asked. They told me it was temporary, that things were tight, that family helps family, and I was the only one stable enough to handle it. I believed them because I wanted to, because I thought sacrifice meant loyalty. Then one night, I opened the family group chat by accident. I wasn't snooping, I was added to the wrong thread when my cousin meant to text someone else. A single notification flashed across my screen before they could delete it. Squeeze her dry. That was the message. Under it, laughing emojis, follow-ups, plans, timelines. They weren't struggling, they were strategizing, talking about how long they could keep me paying before I caught on, joking about what excuse they'd use next month. My hands didn't shake, my stomach didn't drop. Something colder happened. I scrolled. They talked about the house like bait, about me like a resource, about locking me in emotionally so I'd never question why my name was nowhere on the paperwork. That night, I didn't confront them. I didn't cry. I picked up my keys. Because when people show you how they see you, you don't argue, you respond. And by morning, the house they thought they controlled was very, very quiet. I didn't reply to the group chat. That's the mistake they expected me to make. Rage, confrontation, emotional messages they could screenshot and twist into proof that I was unstable, dramatic, ungrateful. I gave them nothing. I muted the thread and sat there in the dark, phone face down, listening to the house hum around me. The same house I'd paid to keep warm. The same house I'd saved from foreclosure twice without ever being thanked. My phone buzzed anyway. Mortgage went through, right? We'll Venmo you back next month. I stared at the message and almost laughed. They had no idea I'd already seen the truth. The jokes, the strategy, the way they talked about me like a faucet they could turn on and off. Squeeze her dry. That wasn't frustration. That was intent. I opened my banking app instead of responding, confirmed the payment history, years of proof. Then I pulled up the property file I'd kept bookmarked since the first temporary payment. Because here's the part they forgot. I wasn't just paying the mortgage. I was also the only one listed on the insurance, the only one handling repairs, the only one with keys registered to my name, and most importantly, I was the one whose name appeared on the quiet document they'd never bothered to read. I stood up, grabbed my coat, and walked out. I didn't lock the door behind me. I didn't need to. By morning, they wouldn't be getting in anyway. They'd been warming me up for years. It didn't start with the mortgage. It started with small emergencies, utilities about to shut off, taxes miscalculated, a roof repair that couldn't wait. Every request came wrapped in praise. You're the responsible one. You don't have kids. You can handle it. You're not like the rest of us. At first, it felt good to be trusted. Then it felt expected. Whenever I hesitated, they reminded me of the house. It's basically yours anyway, they'd say. You're investing in the future. They never said ownership. They said family, because family doesn't ask for contracts. I remembered sitting at that kitchen table, signing checks while they joked in the living room. Remembered fixing the water heater myself because calling a professional was a waste. Remembered being thanked with words instead of equity. The group chat made something click. They never saw me as a future owner. They saw me as a buffer, a shield between them and consequences, a wallet with feelings they learned how to manage. Squeeze her dry wasn't frustration. That was intent. I opened my banking app instead of responding, confirmed the payment history, years of proof. Then I pulled up the property file I'd kept bookmarked since the first temporary payment. Because here's the part they forgot. I wasn't just paying the mortgage. I was also the only one listed on the insurance, the only one handling repairs, the only one with keys registered to my name, and most importantly, I was the one whose name appeared on the quiet document they'd never bothered to read. I stood up, grabbed my coat, and walked out. I didn't lock the door behind me. I didn't need to. By morning, they wouldn't be getting in anyway. They never imagined I'd stop paying or that I'd start locking doors. They assumed I was paying because I had no leverage. That was the lie they built everything on. What they never asked was why the bank accepted my payments without question, why the insurance company called me when the storm damaged the roof, why contractors waited for my approval before starting work. Years earlier, after the second temporary bailout, I'd gone to a lawyer, not to threaten, to understand. He asked one simple question: who actually controls this property when the bills come due? The answer wasn't who they thought. The mortgage was in their name, yes, but the payments came from me, consistently, traceably, and the insurance policy, the one required by the lender, listed me as the lost payee, not them. At the time, they told me it was just paperwork, easier if one person handled it. They didn't realize paperwork is ownership's shadow. I also held something else they'd forgotten about: a recorded equitable interest agreement signed after the first near foreclosure. It didn't make me loud, it made me protected. It stated plainly, if I covered the mortgage beyond a defined threshold, control transferred. That threshold passed 2 years ago, quietly. No announcement, no family meeting, just a date on a ledger. So when I saw "squeeze her dry" in that group chat, I didn't feel betrayed. I felt finished. Because the moment they admitted intent, the moment they documented exploitation in writing, I was no longer just the payer. I was the enforcer. And enforcement doesn't ask permission. That night, I called a locksmith. The next morning, I called a broker. They were still joking in the group chat, unaware the house had already changed hands. The first call came before noon. Not anger, panic. "Hey," my aunt said too brightly, "did you change something with the house?" I didn't answer right away. Silence makes liars rush. "The door won't open. The key doesn't work." I let the pause stretch just long enough. "That's strange," I said calmly. "The locks were replaced this morning." Her voice sharpened instantly. "You can't do that. That's our house." "Is it?" I asked. The line went quiet, then overlapping voices, someone else in the room whispering too loudly, papers shuffling, the sound of people realizing a plan has variables they didn't account for. "You're overreacting," my uncle cut in. "It was just talk. People joke." "About squeezing me dry?" I replied. Silence again. Then anger rushed in to cover fear. "You don't get to punish us," he snapped. "We needed that money." Needed. Not asked, not earned. Needed. "I should come over," my aunt said quickly, switching tactics. "Let's talk this out like adults." Adults don't ambush in group chats. I already did talk, with a lawyer. That's when the yelling started. Accusations, guilt, threats dressed up as concern. They demanded keys, demanded explanations, demanded access. What they never asked, because it terrified them, was whether I had the right. Because deep down, they already knew, and by the time they figured out how serious this was, the broker's sign was already on the lawn. By evening, the tone shifted. That's how you know panic has set in. My phone rang again, this time my cousin. Softer voice, careful words, the designated negotiator. "Okay, maybe things got taken too far. Let's reset." Reset, the word people use when they want to rewind consequences without undoing intent. "You don't have to sell," she continued. "We can pay you back, slowly, once things stabilize." I almost admired it, the confidence that repayment later could erase years of manipulation now. "I'm not angry," I replied. "I'm finished." Silence. "We didn't mean it like that," she rushed. "The chat was just venting. Everyone's stressed." "Then you should have vented about bills," I said, "not about squeezing me." Her breath hitched. "We'll apologize," she said. "All of us. We'll put it in writing." Too late. Apologies are currency when you still control access. When the locks are changed, they become noise. "I already signed the listing agreement," I added calmly. That's when she broke. "You can't just take everything," she cried. "That house is our safety net." I didn't raise my voice. No, I said, it was mine. Because safety nets don't laugh while tightening around someone else's neck. And surrender doesn't work when the sale is already scheduled. They showed up anyway. I wasn't there. That was the second shock. My aunt, my uncle, and my cousin stood on the front porch arguing with a locksmith who didn't recognize their names. They waved old keys like credentials. They demanded entry like volume could override a work order. The locksmith didn't budge. "I'm authorized by the owner," he said, tapping his clipboard. Owner. That word hit them harder than the locked door. They tried the garage, new code. They tried the back entrance, new lock. They called my phone on speaker, pacing the driveway like the house might feel guilty and open itself. "You can't just lock us out," my uncle shouted into the voicemail. "We live here." The realtor arrived 20 minutes later. Clipboard, blazer, calm smile. "I'm here for the walkthrough," she said, already unlocking the door with my key. They froze. "Walkthrough for what?" my aunt demanded. "For the sale. The listing went live this morning." The sign hit the lawn with a hollow thud. For the first time, they understood. This wasn't a threat. This wasn't leverage. This was execution. And the house they thought they controlled was officially no longer theirs to enter. They didn't leave. That was a mistake. When the realtor opened the door, my uncle tried to step inside like muscle memory would override authority. The realtor blocked him with one arm and a smile that didn't bend. "I'll need everyone who isn't on the listing to remain outside," she said. My aunt laughed nervously. "We're family." The realtor nodded. "Then you should be proud she's selling." That's when my uncle snapped. "This is theft," he shouted. "She manipulated paperwork. We were just borrowing money." Borrowing. The word echoed beautifully in the open air. The realtor tilted her head. "Borrowing implies repayment. Would you like me to note that statement?" He froze, because now there was a witness, a licensed professional, a neutral third party, someone trained to document exactly what people say when they panic. My cousin tried to recover. "Look, emotions are high. Things were said that didn't mean anything." The realtor pulled out her phone. "Then you won't mind if I include this in the seller's disclosure file." My aunt's face went white. "You're recording us?" "No," the realtor said calmly. "I'm documenting resistance and claims of ownership, required when occupants dispute possession. Occupants, not owners." My uncle's voice dropped. "We were counting on her." There it was. Not "we paid," not "we owned." We were counting on her. The realtor looked up. "Then you should have treated her like one." I watched it all later, on video she sent me. Every word logged, time-stamped, undeniable. They didn't just lose access to the house. They put their intent on record. And records don't care how long you've known someone. They only care what you admit when you think it's too late. The police arrived before sunset. Not because I called them, because the realtor did. A disputed possession notice triggers protocol. 2 officers stepped onto the driveway, calm, bored, already used to people insisting a house belongs to them because it used to feel like it did. "Who's the property owner?" one asked. My uncle stepped forward. "We are." The officer didn't argue. He looked at the realtor instead. She handed over the listing packet. Deed history, insurance records, payment trail. My name, highlighted more than once. The officer nodded. "Ma'am?" "That's me," I said over the phone, calm enough that my own voice surprised me. "Do you want them removed from the property?" he asked. I paused, not for drama, but for clarity. "Yes," I said. My aunt started crying immediately. My cousin shouted. My uncle went red and began explaining things no one asked about. Family, intentions, how this wasn't supposed to happen. The officer listens politely, then said, "You've been formally trespassed." They were escorted off the lawn. No shouting back, no last words, just people who thought they owned something learning the difference between belief and record. They didn't stop trying. That night, my phone filled with messages, long ones, carefully written, polite, apologetic in tone but not in substance. "We didn't mean it. You misunderstood the chat. We were stressed." Then the pivot. "You're overreacting. This will destroy the family. You've gone too far." My uncle called last, left voicemail. "You made your point," he said, voice low and controlled again. "Unlock the house. Take what you want. We'll forget this ever happened." Forget. Like exploitation is a typo you delete. I didn't respond. Because when someone only apologizes after they lose access, it isn't remorse, it's strategy. They thought surrender would bring the keys back. They didn't understand that once the locks change, the game is already over. The house sold in 18 days. Full asking, no contingencies, clean escrow. The buyer never met my family. They never needed to. Title cleared because it had always been clear, just ignored by the people who assumed silence meant surrender. When the sale closed, the mortgage was paid in full. The remainder transferred into my account in one quiet wire. No applause, no confrontation, just numbers landing where they were supposed to land all along. My family didn't show up to object. They couldn't. Their names weren't anywhere that mattered. The group chat went silent after that. No jokes, no plans, no squeeze her dry. I changed my number. I changed my address. And for the first time in years, I stopped paying for people who laughed at my generosity. They thought I was a resource. Turns out, I was the owner. And when I locked the doors, I didn't just keep them out. I let myself out, too.